I could wake up tomorrow and be 3 pounds heavier. But tonight, like after we're gonna get off this call, it's gonna be like 10 o'clock my time. I gotta get up at 6 in the morning.
Mhm.
Like I'm probably gonna be hungry. I might eat like, you know, 2, 3 pounds of watermelon when I'm done with this. I'm gonna wake up in the morning, I'll be heavier. I didn't gain 2, 3 pounds from the day before, but it will if over a week, if I weigh myself every day, I'll kind of see a general average for the week. And
Right.
it's funny how many people, when they do that, they're like, oh, great. But if you do it kind of once in a while and you see the spike, people break. And it's like, this game is hard enough. If you need to build enough mental fortitude to get through those little bumps, because you're going to get it. You're going to wake up. It's going to be frustrating. You were 172 and you're 170. Chicken breast on 173. It's just, oh, I hated what I ate
Right.
yesterday. If you let that go too high and don't build that for that, okay, I need to be back. I know over this week it's going to go down. Trust that process. You'll constantly get knocked off track.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. We're here with Tony Christodoulou. I think I got
Oh,
the last
you
name
got
right.
it.
Look at that.
It's always the hardest part of the pie. At this point, it's all gravy. We
It's
got it
all,
from
yeah,
here
it's
on
all, there you go. It's all
out.
downhill from here. So you guys can tune out. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, and comment and all that fun stuff. No, I appreciate you coming on. So we'll obviously talk about who you are, but yeah, man, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate you inviting me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of interacting with your content for a while. A few people from our team have, just liked a lot of your approach. I know you don't just work with men, like men and women and stuff, but I've seen a mixture of both. So I'm really excited to unpack some of that, getting into your training philosophies, blood work. How do you help the average person start from the couch, to being fit and healthy? I think there'll be a lot of good takeaways for the audience out there today. And then in addition to it, for those who don't know, Tony fought in the UFC, and we can love to kind of start maybe a little bit there, just kind of unpacking your journey and how you got to where you are today. And we were talking before recording that, I'm a wannabe jujitsu athlete that gets beat up all the time by people like Tony. So I'm really excited to pick his brain and maybe get some pointers here. But yeah, just a big fan of people who do hard things and then can take those hard things and that they work through and those accomplishments and apply it to others to help lift them up. Like whatever the discipline is, like, it just really excites me. So I'm just grateful to have you on and super pumped to jump into it today.
Well, thanks a whole bunch. And actually, I think my story intertwines well with the fitness stuff, even as far going back to my fighting days, because my first number one challenge before I became a fighter was I was obese.
Mm,
So as a teenager, I was about 5'6", 265 pounds. Um, and there probably wasn't much muscle there. So you can paint the picture of what was going on.
sure.
Around the time I was 17 years old, I decided I wanted to be a professional. My whole life, I loved professional wrestling. So like WWF, but like since I was like 3 years old. Most of my life, I grew up with my mom was a single mom. She was a bit worried that I wasn't going to be manly enough with just her around the house. And so she thought saw pro wrestling, she thought boxing was violent, so she put on pro wrestling. And then over time, I fell in love with it. Accidentally got a UFC tape and was like, this is cool. And
Cool.
then yeah, I started training 16 years old, jiu-jitsu. I went to try to become a pro wrestler. I did it for a bit. I started losing weight. I lost somewhere around, I think, like 120 pounds total.
Wow.
Um, from the time I was 17 years old till about the time I was 19. I was 120 pounds. I decided at some point, I told my mom, like, I'm going to quit college. I'm going to become a professional MMA fighter. She probably was not too happy with her pro wrestling choice at that point. And I started training. And my first main battle was with the scale. on multiple levels. The first level was obviously getting the weight down, which to be honest wasn't the biggest struggle I had, because in the beginning it was like such it was a big mountain to climb, but I was kind of, it was kind of fun. It was great. It was the after effect of losing the weight initially and having to make weight for the weight cut that started causing eating like disorders, like binge eating constantly, struggle with like make weight, blow up, make weight, blow up.
Mm,
Um, so that was a lot of my journey growing up, and it was part of what got me into nutrition, got me into training, got me into understanding these principles from that angle, because I was just doing everything. I would be like, oh, what works? It was before pre-massive internet. The internet was
right.
around, but it was all the time. So I was like, oh, ketogenic diet. I'm doing keto now. Then I would just last for a while, blow up. Oh, I'm gonna go vegan. I was vegan for a bit, and then it's like, oh, I'm losing muscle. Okay, I'm done. And I'd keep having these battles, and that's what got me into training people and helping people lose weight. I was actually helping jiu-jitsu guys and MMA guys cut weight for their fights, because I kind of became known for it because I was able to do it so drastically, and that's
Mm,
how I started training people. um, but yeah, that's as far as how that works. But to give you a rundown of my fight career, just in case anyone's interested, i was I started out when I was 19. I moved to Chicago. I was already at that point like a jiu-jitsu blue belt. I went to every MMA gym in Chicago, and I said I was from Athens, Greece. So I went from Greece, went to Chicago. I went to every MMA gym. Was like, hey, I want to be a UFC fighter, and they basically were like, cool, you can jump in the beginners class. And I was like, oh, these guys don't get it. I'm doing this. I just went to every single gym. I finally ran into a guy named Dino Spencer, who was like, "Cool, I'll see you at pro class tomorrow." And I was like, "Listen, I don't got any money to pay for the pro class. Can I have a job?" And he was like,
nice.
"Yeah, you can clean you can basically clean the mats and be the janitor." It's like, "That's all I got for you." And then I was like, "Yeah, cool, I'll do that." And I started. I fought for 12 years professionally. Um, I have about 30 fights, and I made it to the UFC in 2014, and I retired from MMA. My last actual fight was 2017.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I can imagine, how just hungry you have to be to kind of start that from that standpoint. Because like, what else were you doing for other income, for food and whatnot? Like, how did you work through that?
Well, to be honest, it's like there was different parts of the journey. In the beginning, my mom also moved to the U.S. Because I'm an American citizen. I'm half American, half Greek, but I lived most of my life in Greece. So my mom had a job. I lived with my mom in the beginning. I worked like odd jobs. At some point, my coach fired me as a janitor because I was horrific. It was the right move to do. Uh, I worked at nightclubs with him as a bouncer when I was 21. I worked at grocery stores bagging groceries. It was just really anything I could do. After like my first few years, once I started actually becoming more knowledgeable in the sport, I started coaching people. Um, so I would take privates, here and there. I would maybe sometimes teach a class, and then sometimes I would even have some people that would come to me for essentially like weight cuts, or they would want to lose weight. Like I would get a client that wants to lose weight, and I would use them like some of the tactics I would use for weight cutting, not the dehydration part, but the diet parts to help them lose weight. And that was when I kind of was like, oh, I can kind of coach people at the same time, and that's better than bagging groceries and stuff.
Sure.
And so I'm like, this, it kind of makes money and allows me time to train all the time. So then that became like my main source of revenue. But it was really hard, and there was times like there was days that for more like when I moved to Miami in 2000, I think it was 2010. I moved to Miami. I was living on my friend's floor when we had two dogs. He literally in a studio apartment. It was me, his girlfriend. He had two dogs, and me. I had like a little thing on the floor that I was sleeping on, and that's where I lived. And then I lived in my coach's house for a while, and it's like I just couch surfed on people's houses for most of the time, barely making ends meet for most of my fight career.
Yeah, it's interesting too because it's like, so many people, and I still think obviously there's a lot of utility in more advanced training methods and nutrition and all these other things, but there's also something to be said about just the human psyche and just grit. Like just I'm not going to be denied. I'm going to sleep on this floor and I'm going to eat whatever I can, and just make it happen. And then when I'm in the ring, like I'm going to win. And
Mhm.
eventually I'll be able to get all the cool stuff and bells and whistles. But you hear it so much now. And I'm curious to what it's like for you working with the general population. There's so many, everyone's struggles are real to them, but it's got to be a challenge, I would imagine, at first when you start interacting those conversations about, you know, your struggles versus theirs, because sometimes people may uh, exaggerate their struggle a little bit and kind of speak a lot in victim mentality language about how they can't do things. I'm just curious to how have you taken your experiences with you getting to where you were and working through that and tie that into like coaching when you have somebody who maybe has more resources, but they're still just getting in their own way to get their results.
Do you know, actually, I'm extremely empathetic about it because I realized something. My mother at some point struggled with alcoholism, and I've been around drug addiction in the past. And I realized something that food addiction, I don't like call it food addiction, but when you have a very bad relationship with food, it
Yeah.
can become very much like an addiction. The similarities are so the behavior behind the addiction is so similar. So when I would go and have a bad, well, I would lose a fight. My emotions were all over the place. My reaction was completely self-destructive. Maybe I wasn't going to get 3 bottles of wine, but I was eating like 10,000 calories a day for like 6 days straight.
Mm,
Like in I see that reaction with people, that guilt shame cycle play out kind of irregardless. And by the way, it's like you see alcoholics that are billionaires, you see alcoholics that, on the street. It's because the,
yeah.
the the addiction cycle is so similar. So I kind of approach it from that angle from no matter where. Now sometimes I do have real conversations with people, obviously, like, listen, you have a lot of these things going for you. Like, you have access to very healthy food and the easiest time in the world to diet. Like, the fact that you can afford a coach, the fact that we're even having this conversation, you can afford somebody to talk to is a luxury, a
Right.
massive luxury. And someone that has years of experience as well. So you're probably paying a premium. And you're in a very luxurious situation. I sometimes will tell them that these hard truths, but I do feel empathy because I know that it's even if a biological standards, there's no reason you should that you shouldn't be able to do it. It doesn't make it less hard on that person.
Right. Yeah, no, I appreciate that because it's definitely, like I was saying, people will they'll get fixated on their problem and the problem just grows. And then when someone like yourself comes along to coach them and says, "Hey, let's look at it this way." They're like, "Oh, it's not as big and scary as I thought. Well, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can try." And I've talked a lot on the podcast and in different scenarios about like chunking things down for people. Like, okay, this is your protein requirement. Well, let's hit half that. You've never hit half. Like, let's just hit that for 3 days and celebrate. Then let's hit
Hmm.
60%. Then we'll work our way up. Or, instead of you go from 1,500 steps to 20,000, let's just go ahead and hit 3,000 today. Let's just get you moving. So no, I appreciate that approach there. So
I think I have a similar thing. I call it we do the small wins approach. So when I program for my clients, depending on their situation. So if I have a client that is struggling with eating disorders, one, I think I'm also very relatable because I'm that guy. Like, I am the guy that binged and ate. And so, I'm honest with them. I let them know, like, hey, like, there's probably nothing you're going to tell me that you're doing that I haven't done, or at least I
sure.
haven't been around. And my failures in dealing with these things has led to actual consequences. Like, when I got to my UFC debut, I got called on short notice. I have a million running excuses to why, but I was 16 kilograms over my weight class at the time, which
Oh,
was
wow.
like 33, 34 pounds or something of that nature.
Mhm.
34 pounds over my weight class with 3 weeks notice. Under muscled. I hadn't trained in 2 months. I was already doing the binging yo-yo after my weight cut in China. I just basically didn't train afterwards. I won the fight, but I didn't train. Then I got called for the UFC randomly, and I showed up at the fight. I made weight barely. Passed out twice making weight, and it was the first time I ever got knocked out, and I got humiliated in front of the largest crowd I ever fought in front of. So all the reasons that my client might be feeling like, man, what's going to happen to me if I do this? I'm like, well, you only got me to feel bad in front of, and I've already done it in front of the whole world for you. So it's how bad is it going to be? And I've taken that to educate myself. I've obviously gone and gotten certified as a nutrition coach multiple times over to be able to help people with that and their hypertrophy program to avoid those mistakes. But they feel comfortable because they know it's coming to me. And I say, listen, if you're starting and you have 35 pounds to lose, we might be able to start with something relatively, I want to quote unquote difficult. Like, we might be able to put you in a 500 calorie deficit. We might be able to put your steps to 10,000 a day. If you already work out, we might be able to intensify the workouts or whatever. But if you're coming to me like, I got 200 pounds to lose,
Right.
and I don't get off my couch, man. And like my nighttime dinner is Ben and Jerry's. Ben and Jerry sounds good, actually. It's Ben and Jerry. And that's what I want to do. At that point in time, I'm not gonna be like, all right, man, cool. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna be in this it's like, no, okay. How about this? What do? You do 1,000 steps. We're gonna go for 1,500 for a week. If you get that 1,500 1 week straight, we'll move on to the next thing. If you can't get that, there's no point to move on to the next thing. We did
Right.
1,500, cool. Now we're gonna drink 3 liters of water a day. Oh man, yeah, you suddenly you're not constipated anymore. You're going to the bathroom. You might have dropped like 5, 6 pounds because you're moving a little more. You're feeling yourself a little bit. Okay, we'll just add like, vegetables in 2 of your 3 meals for sure. Awesome, great, winning, cool. Let's put a small bit. And I know we're like a year into this process, you know, it's not like a miraculous loss because, we didn't go so hard, but slowly, they've developed the habit. They maybe lost 60, 70 pounds of that, 200 pounds they had to lose.
Right.
And now they've built these kind of habits that feel sustainable, don't feel like it crashed them all at once.
Yeah, to build momentum, right? It's just a compound effect. Like each week, just those little wins compound on the last win and the last win. And I think a lot of people just struggle with seeing the end result. You know what I mean? And it's like just it's a process. You got to work through it. But um, I was going to circle back on some of the like the weight cuts and how you did that. So the first question I had was back then when you were fighting. I don't know when they changed the rules. Was it same day? Was it day before weigh-ins? Like how much time did you have after a weigh-in before a fight?
Well, I fought under both of the in the UFC. The same day weigh-ins. I think we had about like 24 hours probably till we fought around there, maybe 30 hours ish before we fought. They're at the same day. They're both on the day before. One in the beginning was in the morning. The new ones are in the morning. They do the actual weigh-ins, and
Okay,
then basically they do like a ceremonial weigh-ins in the afternoon.
got it.
Uh, so they're both the day before. But nowadays they give you that morning weigh-in is way better because you might have like 38 hours or some more to do it, and you have that extra time is massively beneficial to rehydrate. Um, also depends on the promotion. Like I'd fight on some regional promotions that the weigh-ins would go like way later than they should go, and like now you basically have less than 24 hours to rehydrate. I find, in the more official ones, you have a little over 24 hours, depending how early you are on the card. And now you might even have like 30 plus hours.
Yeah, and so was what ballpark? Like, what would you say? How much of it was dehydration, and how much it was, body fat? Obviously, probably some lean tissue. If you're say, 4 weeks out and you had this massive drop, like, what would be the difference? Say your last 4 or 5 days versus the whole range.
I for depend it's this very athlete dependent as well. But for me personally, I ran a little low on the muscle side because I didn't really pick up hypertrophy training and weight training I did strength conditioning, but much more like circuit style training. That was what was popular back when I was fighting. Like that was
Okay.
kind of the methodologies. But I basically would probably start my weight cut. I would probably start around the 175-pound mark. I would fight either 145, 155. I'd probably start close to the same weight either way. And that's somewhere around like, and if I'm lucky, the 8 week mark. Um, I would cut for 45, probably like 15 pounds of water the week of, which is like water, glycogen depletion, and
Sure.
so forth. And for 55 was normally an easier cut, like 10 pounds. The only thing sometimes I would take 55 fights because they were short notice. I would take more 55 fights. So sometimes even those were 15 pounds. But yeah, 12 to 15 pounds is the normal case.
And now as you're working with athletes or even for yourself, like what is I'm just curious to talk a little bit more about I got a couple examples I want to just kind of bounce off of you, but how do you bring the weight back up like right after the weigh-in? Is there some kind of measurement you're using for carbohydrates, sodium, fluids?
Yeah, so normally what we do is the first thing my protocol how I normally do it with athletes is we'll start with like an electrolyte drink of some sort for like the first couple hours that right after the weight cut. So we're not really eating anything right away. That's a mistake a lot of people make. Is they start chowing down as soon as they're done because you're hungry, you're super thirsty. You kind of can't, your brain can't tell the difference, and you're kind of spiraling at that point. So I focus like on getting an adequate amount of electrolytes in right away. So I normally have like a liter of electrolytes for them to drink as soon as they get off of the scale, to kind of drink and sip out. And I'll try to hold them from just guzzling it all because sometimes your stomach flattens out and
Sure.
that rapid expansion causes like little GI issues. Then we're probably drinking like a liter of water every hour around that. Or after about 2 hours, I start getting them their first meal, like very carbohydrate rich meals, simple carbohydrates for the most part. So we're talking like rice, even sometimes I'll give them stuff like Rice Krispie treats and stuff like
Mhm.
that because we're just trying to like refill those glycogen storages as soon as
Right.
possible. Again, the protein is moderate to low, very heavy emphasis on the carbohydrates, and we start adding in. We're constantly rehydrating with like a water, electrolyte drink. A lot of the electrolyte drinks will also have carbohydrates in them, which help with the refuel process. And they'll be eating meals that are like, let's just give an example, would be like chicken, rice with some very light vegetables. The first one will be with no vegetables. We'll start adding light starches in as we're going throughout and not heavy starches. We're still keeping it low. We'll start adding more fruits like watermelon, melons, things that are easily digestible but high carbohydrate. We'll add in some leaner proteins. Again, we're trying to keep the fats to minimum. And when I do add the fats, I make sure it's fats they had in their diet throughout the
Yeah.
camp. So, like if they were using like avocado or olive oil, that's what we're using. So, we're going to keep it as consistent as possible because your body's in a really sensitive state right after the weight cut. So, it's most important right there that we're sticking to things that are as close as possible. And we'll probably drink we might get up to like 9 to 10 liters of fluids by the time we're getting close to bed. We might have like 4 to 5 mini meals at that point. And then I also keep a lot of snacks out and grazing, so a lot of like berries and fruits, so they can kind of eat and snack as they're moving around. And the next day is pretty much the same deal. High carbohydrates, and before the high carbohydrates, moderate protein, lowish in fats. And right before they go out there, like maybe an hour or two before, maybe we'll have like some really high, fast digesting carbohydrates meal that's like makes like rice with again very moderate protein. And then right before, like 45 minutes before, they'll have something, maybe even some candy, rice cake, something of that nature. And by then they're normally fully rehydrated back up. They've been drinking consistently through, depending on how much weight cut they did.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know it's interesting because there's some similarities and then obviously some vast differences because like in the physique sports, um, years ago I used to coach and compete in that and it was always slowly bringing foods back as you're mentioning, making sure for them it was a little more. I could see how it could affect performance as well, but it was more aesthetics where they weren't taking in things that cause bloat or like gut distension. So it was like you were saying, like easy digestible carbohydrates and start with like higher percentage of sugars or simple sugars, lower percentage of slower digesting carbs, and slowly like move those percentages as you get closer. And then of course the main difference is the fluids. Like weren't really trying to rehydrate, which was always scary. So finding that balance. But with with training, is that something you've ever monitored? Like how much water someone loses in a training session or something to that effect as far as their hydration levels versus performance? Have you seen any utility with that, or maybe because
I
of
didn't really test how much they're losing, but one thing I started doing later in my career, and I did it with my athletes. I actually only did it for my last fight. I wish I'd done it more. Is I do like kind of like a heat training protocol where it's like a heat accumulation over time. So like that sauna or that bath is a fucking killer. Like
right?
sorry if I didn't mean to curse. It's a killer.
Sure.
Like yeah, like you go and like you're in that bathtub. If it's a first time you're feeling that throughout camp, it's like it is a shocker. Like your heart rate spikes, your cortisol levels spike. You just start getting like, oh my god, I got to sit in here for how 15 pounds worth or whatever the case may be. It's terrifying. So I kind of do that heat accumulation, and sometimes we'll test like how much water weight they lost, but it's not as accurate because one, they might have been, when you're in training camp, sometimes your glycogen storages are extra depleted. Sometimes they're not because you just had the carbohydrates earlier. So it really depends on how much weight they're going to lose. So I never really track like, oh, you lost 5 pounds. Sometimes for fun, it's like, oh, lost 7 pounds in that bath. I will hope that happens on fight day,
Right,
whatever we
right.
did the shooting. But yeah, 7 pounds is extreme. But yeah, something of that nature. Um, Huge accumulation we did, but we didn't really track the water weight.
Yeah, I was curious because like I was talking to a pretty high level jujitsu guy, and we were talking about like his no gi versus gi, like weighing himself after. Obviously, he trains in Texas in a thick gi, so the amount, I think it was like 3 kilograms he dropped in water in one training session. Then he would take a 3 4 hour break, come back to another. So we were able to reverse engineer like his sodium, like how much sodium did he lose? On average, it's a formula. Everyone's a little bit different, but got pretty dang close. And the amount of sodium he was undertaking, like short on, is maybe a better way to put it, in his diet was just crazy. And he was just like, the amount, like, because I don't think people realize, and I'm going to draw a blank on a specific study, but as soon as you have the thirst um, response, like it's,
Yeah.
you don't think of it. It just automatically happens. You already are dehydrated and your performance has already dropped. I think it was 10 to 15% or something. There's some different performance research on hydration. So I'm always just like fascinated with hydration and training, especially guys and girls or women that are doing like a 2 a day or something to that effect, or even to some degree, like another extreme would be the general population trying to lose massive amounts of weights if they're really dehydrated, as you're mentioning earlier. Their gut's going to be backed up and other issues, but specifically for like grappling or fighting athletes that are sweating just massive amounts out, it was just really, really mind blowing to see like those micronutrient differences in the hydration. So that's why I was just curious to that, because I try to put myself in a fighter's mindset. I don't think I can wrap my head around it, to where I remember getting ready for bodybuilding, just being so obsessive with the food and all that, and still nervous to go on stage, let alone to go in a cage to fight somebody. So, when you were doing that, does it kind of help the fighters mentally because they're just so focused on weight that they're not really thinking of that, or what's the like mental preparation to that approach to a fight?
You know what, man? Sometimes in some ways it was kind of like he took the focus away from like the fight day. And in some cases that was better. In some cases when they got too extreme, it would go the opposite way. So like I give you a couple examples. Like I had an example. I fought this guy named Marco Gro. Marco Gro was the K1 European champion. We fought in MMA. And that weight cut was brutal for me because overall I was exhausted from the training camp. I broke my foot in the training camp from like kicking somebody's shin. I was dealing with some some difficulties at home, and I was just like, my weight cut was just dying, and I knew I had so many kilograms to lose. Like I'm thinking kilograms. I was fighting in Europe. I was fighting in Greece. I think I had like 6 kilograms to lose the day before the weigh-ins.
Oh,
Like, and I was like, I'm like, this is not going to come off. And I wasn't well muscled at the time, which makes a huge difference. Like,
right.
the more muscular you are, the
Much
easier
like
the weight cuts are.
right.
Like, that was another problem I had. I would see these other guys in the gym. They'd be like, bro, I'm cutting like 7 kilos, no biggie. And I'm like, what? Like, that sounds insane. But they were like, they probably had 2 times the amount of muscle I had, and then that made it so much easier. So anyway, I went to go fight. That time, it was like it's so intense that it took away from my idea of the fight. And I remember like when I made weight, it hit me. Like when we're standing up, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna fight tomorrow. And I got this like I haven't even considered this guy for a second. And I
Oh,
remember I went home and I like just started like looking at every video I could find and just like trying to download. My coaches were telling me stuff. I just was ignoring them. I was only focused on the weight the last day because wasn't losing the whole camp. I just wasn't able to move properly. And I finally ended up making weight, and I won the fight, and it worked out all just fine. I choked him out in the first round, but I was like, that was so close to me thinking too much about the weight cut that I almost forgot that, oh, I got this guy that's like a European kickboxing champion, so now snap my head off in like 3 seconds.
yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine what that would be like because yeah, it's a whole nother level. I mean, it was a little nerve wracking because you're wearing next to nothing going on stage, but nowhere near like someone coming to take your head off. So,
Yeah, I don't know.
but
I think I might want someone to take my head off instead of wearing a thong on stage. I don't know which one's scarier to me.
well, with that, I think it's a good kind of segue to like just what you're doing now. As far as it sounds like you have some fighters, but also general population. Could you walk through just what is a common? I know there's nuance to everything, but like, what's a common kind of start for somebody who's coming to see you? What does the program look like? What are some of your general philosophies? Like I said, I know there's going to be a lot of nuance to individuals, but
Yeah, well, when I started, so to give a little more context, I got into the online training space with the clients about a year and a half ago. I've been training people in the more of the fitness category and not as much martial art for the past like 8.5, 9 years. But
okay.
I have done it for 15 years total. But most time before it was with martial artists or people that were aspiring or enthusiasts, martial art enthusiasts like yourself, or fighters. So in the past like 9 years, that's 9 to 10 years, I kind of took that shift into more general population just because some of my clients are like, listen, I'm done doing jiu-jitsu with you. I just want to, I want you to help me with my diet like we've been doing, or I want you to help me get some more muscle. And and I was like, oh, I got to get into this part of the game more.
Sure.
About 8 years ago, I had my own personal training gym where we did jiu-jitsu, MMA, and personal training and nutrition coaching. I got offered to go train a client who owns a bunch of nightclubs and is a boxer, and he does like he most recently did one of these YouTube boxing matches against KSI. He was my client. He told me that, hey, we need you to come with him from to Mykonos. His team was like, yeah, we need you to come with him to Mykonos for a month. Can you do it? I signed a month deal with him. 1 month, he's like, can you do another month? I did another month. After month three, he's like, listen, I want you to do this full time for me. And he's like, I think that this is going to be your future is traveling with clients around the world. So I was at the time I was 30 years old, so I was like, okay, let's
Yeah.
do it. Why not? So I started traveling with him. I trained him, a bunch of his celebrity friends. I started traveling around the world, and since then I've switched to a couple clients, and I've been a traveling trainer essentially for the last 8 years.
Okay.
And that's why I'm constantly in a different country. But about a year and a half ago, I kind of was like training my clients, and after I was done training them, because I'm always on call, so I'm on call 24 hours a day for my clients whenever they need me. And I deal with their nutrition, I deal with their doctors, their I deal with a physiotherapist, whatever they have, that health related, that's based on me. I deal with all that.
Yeah.
So at some point I was in between, and I was like, I was talking with my friend who had just was in between jobs, and I was like, I wonder if I would be able to do this online for people. Like a lot of what I do is kind of consultation based. It's a lot of like writing programs. A lot of what I do is that. And there's the in person stuff that I can't do with the people online. But I
Sure.
think all this other stuff has a tremendous amount of value to people. And my friend's like, well, why don't we do it? Why don't we shoot off and try it? And so I was like, I have no idea what to do. I'm gonna start posting on Instagram and let's see. And so the kind of clients we normally get in the beginning, it was heavily fighter based, as you can imagine, because the
Sure.
people that followed me were fighters.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of like, I get like real estate agents to CEOs, a lot of executives, people that work in like private equity, and it's really it's right, even to sometimes people that own like fishing boats, crab fishermen. Like I have from all walks of life, very surprisingly. And I think for the most part, the way that I design my programs for people to come in is I try to meet you where you're at. So if you're someone again that has 200 pounds to lose, we're gonna have a completely different approach. I'm not gonna give you like, hey, here's my protocol. Let's shoot. It's gonna be like, forget about the supplements, forget about everything else. This is what we're gonna start with. Okay, what do you need? Oh, we need to teach you like base step one habits. And sometimes if I have people that are like, I'm considering to get on a GLP-1, I try to help them with that. I also I work with a supplement company called Supplement Needs to make sure that that's from Dr. Dean St. Mart. He's has a great supplement company, and I make sure that they get on like some good supplements while they get onto GLP-1 and walk them through that process.
Nice. Yeah. And so with some of these um, new people coming in, so one of the struggles I've had, I guess, to add a little context to my question, back when I was doing a lot more coaching, kind of similar. I would work a lot more with physique athletes, and it was a little more hardcore, if you will. Then I got into like other sports because I coach different sports, and um, that was still a little good. But like in the physique sports, it's like very, very, very rigorous food choices. So my question is like, how do you, go from that coaching that fighter mentality to general population? And then also you mentioned like all these different walks of life. Like, how do you navigate food choices? What's your approach there? Is it, they send you what they like and then you're doing macros? Is there like, how do you get things rolling with them as far as like the nutrition coaching side of it?
So I do two ways. The one way I do it is I in the beginning, if they really struggle with trying to track their macros by themselves in the app, what I tell them is, okay, send me whatever you're going to eat. In the
Okay.
beginning, normally the first week, what I'll do with anybody is like, I'm not telling you what to eat. Send me every single bite you eat. That's all I'm asking you to do. Game one, send me every
Smart.
bite you eat. Then they'll normally send me people try to be honest, especially then, and maybe they're trying their best to eat a little healthier. A lot of times I actually see them lose weight the
Yeah.
first week because I know it's
Someone's
like,
checking.
yeah, someone's checking on me. Just that alone is enough to drop like 2-3 pounds. And then from there, I kind of like, listen, here's the approaches. I think like, I think you're missing on these macronutrients here. I try to take like a holistic approach.
Sure.
So I want to know like, are you getting enough macronutrients? Like, is there something that we can add to your diet to make sure that you're getting I want your body functioning at the most optimal level it possibly can, under realistic circumstances, right? Like
Right.
if you're a mom with 3 kids and you're feeding kids chicken nuggets and you're running around like all that, I don't expect you to be everything. Oh, you didn't get enough vitamin B12, Yeah,
Right. Right.
we're not going crazy here, but I try to take a holistic approach. I go, this is what you're missing in your micronutrients, and here are my recommendation for your macronutrients. What sounds better to you? Some people tell me, man, I can't. If you tell me to count my macros, I'm gonna lose it and eat 3 jars of ice cream. That's not. I'm not there. I give those people a rigid meal plan. Like you're a professional fighter and it's fight camp time.
Yeah.
You eat A Monday, B Tuesday, every day. This is your meal, and every time you. And then when they fall off of it, the only thing I ask them is, if you fall, are you 80% of what my meal plan looked like? And they're like, yeah, 80% I was there. But instead of Milk, I had like yogurt. I was like, I really don't care. I'm happy. But I just try to give them that 80% fluctuation so they don't get, because I know that one thing for people that do have potential to binge is if it's not perfect, there's
Right.
shame. And once shame kicks
Shame
in,
kicks in. It's just yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
then we start rolling down the wrong hill. And it's like now
Yep.
that it's hard to get out of that cycle. So there's some people like that, and then most people, for them, I think probably 80% of my clients are on a flexible plan where it's basically their macros. And what I do is I write to them. I call it the gold star report, and I go, "This would be your meals if you were an A+ student, everything I want you to eat, and like, let's say your goal is to lose 20 pounds in the next 2 months. If you ate like this, I could get every day exactly, you would lose 20 pounds. So let's get as close to that as possible because, that basically is going to include a whole bunch of vegetables in there. So you're going to feel very satiated. You're going to have a whole bunch of good Greek yogurt. You're going to have good lean proteins. It's going to look like the perfect bodybuilder meal. Obviously I try to make it not super bland or anything, but it's
Sure. Yeah.
an enjoyable version of that. And then be like, get close, anywhere as close to that. If your diet looks like, you hit your macros, but it was like 50% Doritos, and you could somehow fit you some Doritos and you fit an apple in there and you drink protein shakes, hit your protein, and we're kind of all over. It's like, okay, you're gonna still lose weight. We're still getting to the goal. I don't want you to like get out of your head. But how far away was that from where we're at? It's quite
Right.
far, right? Let's try to bring it a little bit closer to what that is. And that's kind of the approach I take with it.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that because it's like one of the things too, especially for people out there listening, that I try to emphasize. There's really 2 points, but I'll just bring up one that I hear you saying in there, and it's almost like people say like, "I struggle losing weight," or "I struggle dieting," or "I struggle fill in the blank," and it's like, change that because you struggle with the mental game. You struggle managing your emotions or managing your reactions to things. That's what you're really struggling with. Because I think a lot of times, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's not 100% I'm right, but I do feel like there's a lot of people, if you listen to them, me included, when there's something I'm struggling with, I'll frame it the wrong way. And it's really like, that's really not what I'm struggling with. Like, you're really not struggling with losing weight. It's the thing before it. It's your, like you just said, your reaction or your shame, because then you just overate and you binged or whatever. So I think that's a really helpful um, experience you have, having a lot of experience with food addiction, binging, etc., so that you can help your clients work through that, because that's what most of them are going to do. It's more like, at least in my mind, it's more like self-sabotage and like not knowing what to do. And then they write it off as like, oh, I'm a failure and this doesn't work and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, just a few little things didn't work. Like, it's okay. Stay on, keep working through it. So do you kind of see some of that happening with clients, especially early on when they're working with you, just building that mental resiliency to kind of work through that?
Of course, all the time. I think it's the number one thing. I think it's even the mental resiliency with the scale. I try to get people to not be scared of the scale. I'm
Right.
like, this is just one tool. Like some people can't, but like I tell people, if it was perfect world, I want you to weigh yourself every day. Why? Because I could wake up tomorrow and be 3 pounds heavier. But tonight, like after we're gonna get off this call, it's gonna be like 10 o'clock my time. I gotta get up at 6 in the morning.
Mhm.
Like I'm probably gonna be hungry. I might eat like, you know, 2, 3 pounds of watermelon when I'm done with this. I'm gonna wake up in the morning, I'll be heavier. I didn't gain 2, 3 pounds from the day before, but it will if over a week if I weigh myself every day, I'll kind of see a general average for the week. And
Right.
it's funny how many people, when they do that, they're like, oh, great. But if you do it kind of once in a while and you see the spike, people break. And it's like, this game is hard enough. If you need to build enough mental fortitude to get through those little bumps, because you're going to get it. You're going to wake up. It's going to be frustrating. You're 172 and you're 170. Hey, chicken breast on 173. It's just, oh, I hated what I ate
Right.
yesterday. If you let that go too high and don't build that for that, okay, I need to be back. I know over this week it's going to go down. Trust that process. You'll constantly get knocked off track.
Yeah. No, it's something interesting too. I notice, and I have seen it when some men, but I notice it more in women, is when they start resistance training or they're taking something like creatine, or they do get their hormones right, they're like, "Well, I put on a little weight." I'm like, "Yeah, those are nutrients." It's like your body's
Yeah,
like soaking them up because they haven't had them. That's the raw
yeah.
materials, the good stuff. That's lean tissue. That's gonna fuel this whole thing. Like, you just don't freak out. Like, if you have, water, sodium, and creatine, like, it's going to get up in that muscle cell and make it nice and juicy and healthy. But if I hold my water bottle and stand on a scale, I'm going to weigh more than if I wasn't holding my water bottle. So it's just kind of, we know that. It's just sometimes just walking people through it to not get too obsessive with that and look at, like, as you're saying, look at the full picture there. So um with that, actually, a question I did have was, any difference in your approach? Let's start with exercise protocols first, with between men and women, whether there is or isn't a difference. And then my follow up to that would be, like, what does that look like when someone's first starting with you if they don't have like a exercise, they haven't been training in, say, a couple years or working out at all?
So I'll break the first one for men and women. I don't change it too much. In my experience, I see women seem to recover a little bit faster from workout to workout. So
Mm,
like maybe I can have them hit glutes, especially if that's their goal, which a lot of times with a lot of my female clients, it is to grow their glutes. So like, maybe I would add like more glute exercises than I would for a man that wanted to grow his glutes, just because their ability to recover, just, I guess women are just tougher than us all around. They end up recovering a little bit better.
sure.
That's the only real difference when I program for them. But when I program for someone that's a complete beginner, that's a different situation. The way that I kind of do it is I start with the very minimum required volume that you might need to grow. And a lot of times it's kind of frustrating to people because they got motivated. I want to hit it hard. And I tell them, like, here's the thing. I don't know what you can recover from yet. Like,
Right.
you might be able to recover through this like it's nothing. But if you go and get too sore after day one and you don't go to the gym day two, the chances you go to the gym day three are unlikely because you already have years of momentum of not going to the gym. You're fighting it. All those years of momentum are trying. Momentum is powerful. Once you goes, it goes.
Right.
Even for myself, like if I don't go to the gym one day and I don't go the next day and I don't go the next day, out of 3 days, now it's like the week might go by without me going to the gym. It rarely happens on days, but I built habits to avoid that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I want to give you something that you could do and be like, I'm excited to go back whenever my next scheduled workout is. I still feel good. I can keep it up. And then, like, week one, maybe you're like, bro, I wasn't there for 35 minutes. I'm
Right.
like, but you went 35 minutes 3 times this week. That's awesome. And you're hitting whatever step goals you have. It's dope. Next week's gonna be 40 minutes. Trust me, in week six, you're gonna want week one again. That's so don't
Right.
worry about it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Just building the ramp for them. Yeah. In your training, do you find, even with like general pop, like someone who doesn't have any fighting or grappling experience, do you try to integrate some conditioning, whether it be striking or some kind of self-defense class, or is it just kind of based on their preferences, or how do you approach that?
It's really goal based. Sometimes I recommend to people that I think would enjoy it as far as like an activity. I do try to get people to do some type of cardio, like higher intensity cardio for overall health, especially if they're of a fitness level that it's appropriate. So if like I have somebody that comes in that's like I had one guy recently that came to me, he he kind of likes jujitsu, so he was thinking about going to jujitsu. I kind of talked him into. I said, "Hey, I actually think you should go to jujitsu. I think it's a good idea." And I'll add. I Before he even did that, I was adding like some assault bite work in. We added some burpee challenges in, and because I just kind of also I know that he it's a way to get high intensity cardio just for overall cardiovascular health. But if someone's like, again, if I'm talking to a mom with 3 kids in a job, I'm gonna say, hey, can we get our steps in?
Right.
Can we
Right.
can we get resistance training twice a week? Cool. That's great.
Now,
That's awesome.
now you got me curious. What's a burpee challenge by Coach Tony? What does that look like? What would be an example of a?
I have one that's an absolute nightmare. It's death by burpees,
Okay.
and you start at one. Every minute on the minute in EMOM, essentially, you increase by one burpee. and all the way till maximum you could do within the minute. The goal is to hit 20 burpees
Ooh,
within the minute. It's
I'm gonna write that
very
down.
few people I've ever hit. Very few people have hit it. It's
So I
brutal.
just so I was telling you about the guy that's a new client of ours, and I turns out I kind of know him through a small circle of people that was in UFC, and then a good friend of mine was a Olympic wrestler, and always has some text out some fun challenge. So his recently was 20 burpees, 1 minute plank on the 3 minute. So you had to keep it going.
Yeah.
And mind you, I'm not in like I'm working on that type of training. I don't do much. So I made it through. The third round was longer than 3 minutes it took me. So I was like, all right,
Yeah.
well, I need to punish myself now with some sprints and some different work because my big butt couldn't get past that. But that's a good one because it's man, nothing like burpees. It doesn't matter how fit you are, like they're going to break you down. Everyone's going to hit it at some point, but it's such a good movement. So
It's funny that I see some people online give some hate to the burpee, but I was saying it for fighting. I learned that was actually for one of my training camps. A coach did it. I went to, and he was like, "We're doing death by burpees," and we shadow box in between. So it was like one burpee, and you're like two burpees, like it's easy. And then I'm 13, and you're just like, I don't know why I can't do this. And remember the next day I was sore, and I was like, this reminded me of a fight. It was so
yeah,
similar. It's kind of how fights normally. Fights rarely start like go and explode. It happens. It's rare. It's normally like I find you, I find you. At some point, it cranks up, and at some point, it becomes like a
right.
pace that is like almost unbearable. And your muscles are tired, which that's what happens in burpees, and your cardio is tired. So you're getting attacked on both systems. That's kind of similar to fighting. So for a lot of fighters, I still like use it. I'm like, if you could do this once a week, and like by the fight time comes, you're at 20 burpees in the 20 minutes, you're in 20 burpees at the end, you're pretty good shape. Like I'm not saying that's exactly fight shape, but it's a nice little test.
Yeah, no, that's intense stuff. I'm curious. I want to shift gears back to some of the health markers that you look at. So I know in a lot of in some of your content, you'll talk about blood work and things. Are there specific types of blood markers you like to look at specific times when you train people? Like, what does your assessment of one's health and blood work generally look like in your programs?
So depends very much on like what their goals are per se. Some of my clients are on testosterone replacement therapy, so we're checking I'm checking their LH, their FSH, I'm checking their lipid profile, I'll check their glucose, their H1BC. I'll be checking generally where they're at in their creatinine levels. I'll be checking their C-reactive proteins, just general markups to see if I see anything that's within my scope of knowledge. And if I see that, hey, something's a bit off. I'm not like things like we start getting into like their thyroid health, and I'm thinking something's not right. I then have doctors that sometimes I'll work with to be
Sure.
like, hey, I don't know what's going on here, give me your opinion. What do you think's going on? But it really depends. Most of my clients that do it for general health, I'm mostly checking their lipid profile because a lot of my clients coming, especially the ones that are a bit heavy, their lipid profile is a bit high, their glucose is high, and that's the kind of first markers I'm trying to get down.
Good stuff. Well, we I know I wanted to talk a little bit. We were talking about kind of blood work and approach there.
Yeah, you asked me, I was about to tell you about my cousin that just
Yeah,
came
there
in.
you go. There you go.
Yeah. So, yeah, my cousin came in. He has a high LPA. We found out genetically that, almost everyone in the family does except me, which is great. But his LDL was really high. His, how do they call it? His HbA1c was really high. His glucose was high. His triglycerides were high, and he was like freaking out. He's like, what's gonna happen? Like his ApoB was high. And I was like, listen, man, like relax. Like, what's your blood pressure? His blood pressure was good. I'm like, we could start making changes. He's like, what do I want to do? I'll do anything. I'll do anything. I'm freaking out. I'll do anything. And I'm like, okay, so number one, we got to quit smoking. So we quit smoking. That was the first move. And then it
Nice.
was like, let's add some exercise. We added resistance training in this program. We upped his protein. We dropped down some of the fatty foods he was eating. Like he was eating a lot of saturated fats. He was eating a lot of like cakes and sugars and burrata. It's a Greek dish. It's basically a pastry with cream in it. It's absolutely delicious. But yeah, he was eating a lot of that. He wasn't he wouldn't be what you would call someone that was overly fat, but he was over fat in the sense that he had essentially very little muscle with
Okay.
more body fat, even though it was on a skinny frame. And it looked like he had partially fatty liver. His liver enzymes were elevated, and so we went on this protocol for about 3 months. I added him on some supplementations, like I get Heart Stack from Dr. Dean St. Mark. I made sure that he was taking omega threes. We got him exercising. He started doing more cardio. Most of the cardio was just walking every day, but some of it was like a little bit of high intensity cardio. He lifted weights. Like he went like every day essentially to do what would mostly like calisthenic lifting because he didn't really wasn't really dedicated to go to the gym. He had never done before. I said, let's not try to like take a huge leap and like you're gonna go to the gym every day now. There's a calisthenic park right next to your house.
Right.
Like, let's go do push-ups. Let's do dips. Let's do some push-ups, some air squats, and every week try to get a little more than you got the week before. And we're just gonna keep doing that. And he did it. And like I think he was like at 146 LDL, went down to 82.
Wow.
Fasted glucose was perfect. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head right now. Um, he had his LPA obviously was still high. And we saw that, he had a bit of some folate. His folate was a bit low, but overall, everything improved, every single marker. His liver enzymes were great. He had his glucose was perfect. In the first time in his life ever, he was actually felt jacked, which is completely separate, but it because he quit smoking. Now he got some muscles. He has a perfect blood work essentially outside of his LPA and like low folate. And he felt like a different human being. And like I remember like his HbA1c was down, it was low, and I was like lower. He's like, man, I didn't think this was gonna get lower like this. Like I thought I was gonna have like a problem. I thought I was pre-diabetic. I was gonna be in this situation. And I was like, it's a miracle what you could do by just going to work out like a few days a week, like walk and like stop the obvious bad things for you. Like you smoking's a no-no, so like stopping smoking is huge. And by the way, there were days like he would go he have a beer and with his friends, like he would call me like, bro, my friend wants to go for beer. I'm like, "Yeah, I promise you, like you can have a beer or two with your friends. It's not the end of the world. But if you're smoking, having a beer or two, eating burratas every night, not exercising, that's going to add up. And you already have a genetically predisposition of high LPA, which is increases your danger of, you know, atherosclerosis and so on. This is the time to make these small little changes.
Right.
And he did, and it's amazing.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. Any other? I would like to. One thing I want to rephrase what I was going to say. I would like to hear from you because I always find it interesting to hear from other coaches out there. Um, maybe one or two myths that you see, have it be online or that clients tell you that you just wish would like just die and go away. Like what are a couple myths that people bring to you or that you see that you're like, oh, geez.
I'll tell you some of my worst ones are the carbs going to make me fat. Like so many clients, especially in the Gen Pop, are like, oh, I'm eating really healthy. I stopped eating bread. Like that's like their first thing. Oh, I don't eat no bread, no rice, no carbs. Like that's the danger. That's probably the first one that I
Yeah.
would like to eradicate. If I had a magic wand, I would make that go off. And the second would be, and I hear this from a lot of people say women say this, but I hear it from both. Is I don't want to look like a bodybuilder
Yeah.
if I lift weights. It's like you're not. I promise you. I try to look like a bodybuilder and I don't look like a bodybuilder. I actively go every single day to the gym. I lift, I try to eat right, I hit my protein goals. Not by the way for a week. I do this for years and I
Right.
don't look like a tenth of a bodybuilder. I promise you're not gonna look like a bodybuilder because I told you to hit the gym twice a week. And because it's crazy. how that actually stops people from going to the gym. Believe it or not, I've actually really, that's why I don't go. That's why I don't lift weights. I don't want to look like a bodybuilder. It's like you won't.
Do you find that that's when people say more like 40 and up? Is it like a certain generational thing, or do you see it across the board?
You know, I see it with older women more, but I see it
Mhm.
with younger men as
Mm,
well. So I'm
interesting.
seeing like guys that are like, they'll be like, oh, I kind of want to be an athletic. I don't want to be like a bodybuilder. And I'll be like, well, one, to be athletic is great, by the way. I've loved to hear that you want to be athletic. I was an athlete for most of my life. I also think bodybuilders are athletes, but completely separate point, but by the way. But I'm like, I'm telling you to lift weights twice a week. Like, that's not going to change it. And you would think that with all the content out online, that people would know that nowadays. And it's one of the things that allowed me to get online because I was like, man, there's great guys out there. Like, why would I start posting anything? People are listening to Lane Norton, then go have them watch a Mike Israel thing. Like, there's so many good guys to listen to. Like,
Sure.
I, I could like, I just send them somewhere else to listen to. Why should I sit there and talk about it? But it's actually crazy how people come up like, man, that was really helpful. I never knew that. I didn't know I could get my. All I do is lift weights twice a week. I was like, what? There's like 100,000 podcasts. Have you never heard it? But it's like, yeah, my piece of the internet, my piece of the internet's crowded, but in the real world, it's a very small
No.
piece.
No, and I think like because I talked to my wife about this because was in college in literally 2000 and getting my first training certification in National Academy of Sports Medicine in 2000. And I remember starting to see women come over from the group fitness or come over from the cardio equipment to the resistance area a little bit. But it's totally different now. There's like women train, generally speaking, guys, you can get mad at me, but if you're some jacked powerlifter or bodybuilder, I'm not talking to you. But
Yeah,
generally, women train harder with weights now than men, and they're looking more and more feminine, in a good way, like
yeah,
healthy,
yeah,
and fit. And there's some gyms where I'll go and I'll see 60, 65, 70% women on the weight floor where there's like this,
oh, yeah,
where all the guys at, so it's just,
yeah,
it was been interesting to see that shift. And because that's what I was talking to my wife about, where like she does it now because she actually enjoys strength training a lot more. But when we first met, she was really big into like circuits and always like keeping the heart rate up and all that, because that was just kind of what was instilled in her in the 90s in high school and then as a college athlete. And it's like, yeah, that's changed so much, but she actually kind of enjoys the heavier movements a little bit more and just being able to kind of push through like a tough set. I mean, she still does some of the other stuff, but it was just interesting to see like that dynamic as you walk into a gym over the last, gosh, I guess I'm dating myself, 25 years now, which is kind of cool to see. I remember guys saying that when I first got into it, like, I remember 25 years ago. Now I'm the old guy saying that.
I remember back in the day. What's funny though? I actually I got 2 points here. Like the one point as far as like women in the gym training harder, I 100% agree. Like you'll see like women like hip thrusting like 1.5 times their body weight,
Yep.
just like cranking out reps and like sweating and going hard. And like you'll see like I'm not trash talking the guys, but like I'll see a lot of guys who go there, they'll be on the thing, they'll kind of go, they'll be like 17 reps away from failure. They'll put the weight down. They're kind of talking on their phone. They're like, I'm like, that's training. That's moving. I love wrong with
Right.
moving. I
Right. Right.
like moving.
Right.
Moving's great.
Sure.
Yeah. But it's a different thing. We can't
Total different.
compare these. Yeah. On the other end, I actually think about this as far as the athlete comment I said. I think it's important. At the end of my career, bring it back to fighting, full circle this, but my last fight, so my last fight before my final fight was 2015, and then my next retirement fight was 2017. So 2 years in between. During those 2 years, I picked up weight training seriously, mostly because I essentially was becoming much more of my clients wanted to be aesthetically pleasing for the most part, to be
Sure.
frank. That was their actual main goal. And they like to do like hip pads as one of the ways to do that. But they wanted to lift weights. So I tried to educate myself as much as I could. I went and became certified as a personal trainer. And me doing tests aren't great. I have ADD and dyslexia. So I hate I'm doing academic scholar stuff. Studying is really hard for me. I love reading and learning, but the minute you're like test,
Take a
but
test, yeah.
no, I hate it. It drives me bananas. Plus, if you tell me sit in the classroom, I can't do it for that
Right.
long. I need like short increment learning. But I did it. I went through it because I'm like, okay, this is what my clients need. This is what I need to get good at. So I
Yeah, good for
basically
you.
did every certification I possibly could get under the sun. And I started training myself. I'm like, I got to do it. I obviously got to practice what I preach. I'm learning
Right.
theories, great, but let's get in the gym. And I started lifting. And then as I started lifting, I couldn't squat for years, even air squats, because I've had two surgeries on my knees.
Oh,
I tore a ligament in my ankle that I never got fixed. I didn't have insurance. Um, I have four herniated discs in my neck, a herniated disc in my back. I broke both my hands. I broke my foot. Like I've been damaged. I just thought, well, the rest of my life is going to be shitty as far as athletic performance. And within those 2 years of lifting, I got better. Started training jiu-jitsu more. I shot takedowns again. I kind of was throwing punches. I was like, oh, I feel stronger. My triceps felt stronger. My punches felt stronger. And that's when I decided to take one more fight. Did a retirement fight because lifting brought me back to life. That
wow.
hypertrophy program I did is what gave my body the strength, the armor essentially, to be able to go do the sport that I like to do. I built actual strength. And by the way, I was using mostly machines for like not only, but I was using a large part of the things I was doing was straight bodybuilding program. Maybe I did bench press, but then I didn't, incline machine press. I was not doing it for sport specific whatsoever. And
Sure.
that's all I did. And it brought me back into fighting. By the way, I cut the most weight for that fight. I fought at 145. It was the easiest weight cut I ever had in my entire life. I was laughing. I had coffee right before I went on the scale. Like that. And I think that it's hard to conceive in their head, but weightlifting is functional
Right.
in itself, even a hypertrophy program.
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot out there like, gosh, I'm gonna draw a blank now, but there's been some pretty respective guys in the early 2000s, that were like sports scientists that we're talking about absolute strength is my point. They're like, if you're a skier and you can bench, deadlift, leg press more, like there's going to be some translation to your skills. Like, there's going to still be your skill set in the actual discipline and sport. And the more technical the sport is, the more challenging the crossover. But if you're not doing strength training so much so that it's diminishing your return on your sport specific training, have it be jujitsu, for example, like you're just so sore you can't grapple ever. But strength is strength, like absolute strength will transition over to any sport and help someone in any way. So it's literally, I was talking to my 12-year-old daughter about it because she's swimming and she's noticed she's getting sore. And I'm like, you're at that age, honey, where like she's done some resistance training, but like as we resistance train more, that soreness will go down. Like, we'll build some strength, but while you're learning the technique to move from the water, and I kind of was explaining that to her, but it just, when you
Yeah.
said that, I thought of that conversation we were having the other day because it's, it's not, like I said, because back when I used to do strength sports, like I'm like, it's not like what daddy used to do. Like, we're not saying bodybuilding, like just
Yeah.
build a little bit of health and good, lean tissue and help your body be more resilient. And then eventually you'll recover and be able to train longer, faster, harder, so.
By the way, I love that you're getting your daughter to start resistance training from a young age because I actually think one of the best ways to stop obesity for people is if kids started doing resistance training at a young age,
Yeah.
because I see that one, you build more muscle as a kid. You're essentially growing. You're on growth hormone and testosterone naturally. It's
Right.
100% great. The whole you're not gonna get tall is that's probably the worst myth because I always look at things like, what, I've had a pretty good life. I've had my arc in life, and maybe I can have another 30, 40 years, and that's awesome. But these kids are the future. That's who's going to bring us. That's what matters. Like, we're whatever. It is what it is.
Right.
We've had a lot of our moments in the sun.
Right. Right.
Uh, so I care about them getting in the gym. Like, I want them to be, when they're 30, I don't want them to be wondering like, should I be on GLP-1s, or do I have to, like, how am I going to fight this horrible disease of obesity that's chronic? Instead, I want them to be like, yeah, you know what? I lifted twice a week since I was 12 years old, and like I got a pretty decent amount of muscle. I can run upstairs. I'm strong enough to like pick myself up. And yeah, I've never dealt with anything. I don't even know what you guys were talking about.
Right.
That's a perfect world for me.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. No, and that's why I got him into jujitsu for a little bit too, because I'm like, Daddy will sleep a lot better if you can choke out a grown man. But so they're still early in that journey, but it's all good. But well, hey, I know it's getting late where you're at, so I appreciate you coming on. But before we start to wrap here, Tony, can you tell everybody, just we'll have it in the show notes for everybody out there as well, and in all of our posts, we'll post a few different clips from this. But can you tell everybody where they can find you, learn more about your program, and your socials?
Yeah, so you could follow me at, this is gonna be a mouthful, Tony.Christodoulou on Instagram, uh, also TikTok, on YouTube, it's the Lifetime Transformations channel. If you want to just go to my site and then you can get everything, it's www.lifetimetransformations.com. And I post videos regularly. I also have my podcast up as well, which I'm definitely going to get Joe on. I'm going to say it on the air so then he can't cut it out.
Awesome. No, looking
Yeah,
forward to it.
come on and yeah, you come learn about me, all my training systems over there. You'll see everything. I try to post every single day, as much as it pains me. So, but if you guys like my content, I try to give as much information as I possibly can out there for free. And so come follow me, and hope you guys enjoy the journey.
Awesome. Well, and I will say I'll second that, because not only is it good content, but you got some pretty funny clips in there too. So it's definitely entertaining. So I appreciate that. But well, hey, thanks so much for joining us, everybody out there. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, and share the episode, and check out everything that we have listed out. All the places you can follow Tony from there. So thanks so much. We'll see you.